Okay, this video is going to be a start to the Chapter 2 unit, and this unit is mostly about variables. And so we're going to do an introduction to variables, and this is a very important concept to understand. Chapter 2 is critical. It's important to understand as much as you can about this chapter, the concepts in this chapter, because they will be infiltrated throughout the rest of the chapters in the semester. So this is very critical to understand how this works, because you'll be using these concepts all the way through. So we're talking about an introduction to variables, and we're going to introduce variables by taking a situation that I hope that we can relate to, and it's calculating the cost of a customer's order. Now, before we get started here, what I need you to do is take out a piece of paper, and I need you to set up a series of 4 boxes that look like this. So you have a box in the middle here, and you want to leave a good amount of space below it, and then you put 3 boxes side by side horizontally across the paper. So if you need to pause the computer to do so, go ahead, but you want to be able to do that first before you start or continue on with the video. So as we're doing this, the first question I want to ask you is, where do you put the utensils in your house? Your forks, your knives and spoons and so forth. And so the assumption would be that you would go, okay, well, we're going to put it into a drawer. And so here's a drawer that is made for utensils, where you can put spoons and knives and forks and etc. And so we're going to see as we go through this that a variable is a place that stores things. And variables, different variables, are able to store different types of things. So for instance, in this particular drawer, you're not going to store a box of cereal. It's not going to fit. And you're not going to, this isn't going to be placed to where you store your cups and glasses, because it's not going to fit. And so this particular storage area is designed to store certain items, and that's what's going to happen, as you'll see with variables. So we're going to start with a scenario here that we're going to take throughout this whole video, or it's maybe a series of videos. So you're working at a coffee shop, and so SallySue comes into the store to make a latte order. And so the question is, well, what word or words do we need to store in this location here that are going to be involved as far as a customer's order? And so as I've asked other classes, I've gotten a series of answers. Finally somebody will say SallySue. SallySue is an important part of this, and so we're going to store SallySue inside of this box. So write SallySue in there. Now this, we want to give a name that's going to represent the different types of data that would go in this box. And so SallySue, of course, is a customer. And so we want to give this name of this unit, or this storage place, we're going to give it the name customer name. So go ahead and write customer name above this box. So the important thing to see here is that what is actually storing SallySue? Well, it's this box. And this box is what we're going to call, it's going to be a storage unit here. This box is a named storage location. Okay, it's a storage location. It's named, in this case customer name, and it's storing something. It's storing SallySue. We call this a variable. This is what a variable is. Now in your computer, in the memory of your computer, you have a finite amount of storage space within the hard drive of your computer, and it is made up, the memory or storage area, just like a storage unit where different people can rent spaces to store their stuff. In the same way, your hard drive is going to have these storage areas that will store data. And so they're actually, as this says, they're memory cells. They have numeric addresses, but eventually when they get used, they will be named. They will be given a name. And so what we do here then is we will be giving a particular storage cell a name, and we're going to be storing something in it, and this is called a variable. And so as we said, this variable, this storage location, it's a name storage location. You can also call it a name memory location. This variable has a name, and so we call this a variable name. A variable name, the important thing about a variable name is that it is a descriptive word. Alright, so it is a descriptive, it's descriptive of the data that will be stored. So if we were to change this value, we're not going to put peanut butter in here because peanut butter is not a customer name. We might put Bobby Sue or Billy Bob or something, but another customer name. So the name is, we don't want to use X, Y, and Z like we do in math, because we want it to be descriptive of the data that will be stored in it. Now this again, a variable is a storage location, so it stores things. It's actually going to store data. And so we call this SallySue, in this case, we're going to call this the data that is assigned to or stored in a storage location is called a value. This is the value of the variable customer name. So customer name's the name of it, and SallySue is the value. The value is the data that is assigned to this memory location, or it's the data that is stored in this storage location. It would be like the knives or the spoons that go into a utensil drawer, or maybe like the cups that go into a cupboard that's designed to hold cups. Alright? So now we're going to look at this data here. And so what makes up this data? What kind of data are we looking at? Well, what we're looking at is we're looking at words. We have spaces in here. We have letters. We have characters. In fact, the question is, how many characters are there? And so go ahead and count how many characters there are. If you counted right, you'd count 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You'd count the space as 6, and then 7, 8, and 9. So there's 9 characters. Remember, characters are printed. Spaces are printed when they are in between quotation marks. And so when you have letters and characters and words in between quotation marks, we call them strings. And so this is a data type. The data type for this variable or this storage location is a string, which means, well, so we're going to, we'll actually bring this up here too. So this is the data type. Okay, so the variable, its name is customer name, its value is SallySue, and its data type is string, because the only thing that can be stored in this particular storage location would be words, spaces, letters, characters, or in other words, strings. Okay, so it would be like the data type for a drawer might be the utensils, or it could be utensils only or something, but this is kind of the idea. It's a data type. Now, it's important to get the difference between string and literal string, which, by the way, we're going to call a string literal because that's what the textbook calls it. So when you have a literal string or a string literal, we already know from chapter 1 that it is identified by quotation marks. So now notice that as a data type, string is capitalized, but we didn't capitalize literal string or string literal. And so in here, SallySue is a string, okay, because it's made up of characters, a string of characters, an S, an A, an L, and Y, and a space. It's made up of characters. But customer name, the variable, is a string, capital S variable. Okay, and that's the difference between string as a value and then the string as the data type. Okay, so now we're going to stop this video and then you can continue this on part 2.